Back to the warehouse in the desert we go, as the UFC will host a fight night this upcoming weekend in their home, Las Vegas, Nevada, and quite literally in their home headquarters, the UFC Apex, otherwise known as the Meta Apex, for UFC Vegas 114, and it is a very, very fun, interesting, stylistic clash in that main event, as we will see the 11th ranked former interim title challenger and veteran Josh Emmett taking on the 14th ranked newcomer that is absolutely surging right now in Kevin Vallejos, just the second Argentinian fighter ever to main event a UFC fight night. And there's two things here that jump off the page to me in terms of storylines and what is riding into this UFC Vegas 114 main event. The first is the age gap. Josh Emmett is 41 years old. His opponent, Kevin Vallejos, just 24. 17 years the elder will be the veteran Emmett heading into this main event. And the other is the momentum on the side of Kevin and the lack thereof for Josh Emmett, as he will enter this fight, Emmett that is, having lost 4 of his last 5 bouts, with his most recent win coming in December of 2023 when he had that absolutely devastating one-punch knockout over Bryce Mitchell. Whereas Kevin will enter this fight having not lost since September of 2023, riding a 6-fight win streak, with 5 of those 6 by way of stoppage, including 2 of his 3 wins in the UFC today, including his most recent, which came against Giga Chikadze in the last event of 2025, where he would finish him via spinning back fist, becoming the first man to ever finish Chikadze by way of strikes. And you know what? Scratch the 2 storylines. There's actually a third one that I want to dive into, and it is the amount of fights for both fighters, because yes, Josh Emmett is 17 years older. Yes, he is the guy that has been in the UFC for close to 10 years, dating back to May of 2016. However, in terms of total fights, Emmett has 25, and the 24-year-old Kevin Vallejos does have 18, so he doesn't have that much more experience in terms of actual fights in the cage, but what Josh does have is the laundry list of names in this featherweight division who have been perennially ranked, who have gone on to become champions, and everything in between. Emmett has been in the octagon against Jeremy Stephens, Michael Johnson, Shane Burgos, Dan Ige, Calvin Kattar, Yair Rodriguez, Ilia Topuria, Bryce Mitchell, Lerone Murphy, and Yusuf Zalal. That was his last fight back in October where he would be submitted. Whereas for Kevin, his biggest fight was that Giga Chikadze fight in December, and the other biggest fight prior to that was actually in his lone loss of his career, and that was against Josh Silva during the 2023 Dana White Contender Series season, where he would lose a decision. So I am curious if the age difference here, the 17 years younger for Kevin Vallejos, will make a huge difference, pairing alongside with his 6-fight win streak and all of the momentum that he has on his side, or will it be the high-level experience of Josh Emmett that maybe gives him the slight edge in this fight? Because when we head into the X's and O's, these two men can absolutely crack. And don't get it twisted. Yes, Josh Emmett does win most of his fights by way of decision. 10 of his 19 have come by way of going to the scorecards. But when he does knock people out, 7 of them on his record, they are absolutely nasty. And he has some of the heaviest hands in the 145-pound division right now. It's undeniable. And maybe Kevin Vallejos doesn't have that one-shot put-away power that Josh Emmett has. He does have some serious danger in his hands, and he can throw high volume to coincide with it, as he has finished 14 of his 17 victories, and 12 of those 14 have come by way of knockout, and in 18 professional bouts has only seen the scorecards 4 times, going 3-1 when they see the scorecards. And in terms of stakes, it's pretty simple. Josh Emmett, you have to win this fight if you want to maintain any relevance in this featherweight division, if you want to hold your spot in this top 15 before potentially being booted out for good. And for Kevin, how good are you? Can you prove that you can now hang in there against someone who has fought the best of the best and has challenged for interim gold before and was 1 fight away from challenging for the undisputed title against Volkanovski at one point in his career? And one last little wrinkle that I forgot to mention is that we have to talk about the main event experience as well, because Josh Emmett has gone the full 25 minutes in his last 3 main events against Lerone Murphy, against Ilia Topuria, somehow, some way he did it, and against Calvin Kattar. Whereas for Kevin, I already said he's only gone to the scorecards 4 times, whereas Emmett has gone to the scorecards 13 times, but he has also never had to go the full 25 minutes. And so that is definitely something to keep our eyes on as well. Can Kevin Vallejos keep the gas tank up with Josh Emmett as we approach rounds 3, 4, and 5? And this fight comes at a pretty meaningful time for the featherweight division as well, as we are about to see, in 1 week from this one, Movsar Evloev taking on Lerone Murphy in a #1 contender contendership bout. Alexander Volkanovski successfully defended his title at UFC 325, and we just learned over the last few days that Aljamain Sterling will be taking on Youssef Zalal in April. So the wheels are churning right now at 145 pounds, and these two men are vying for the spot into the top 10 and to insert, if you're Kevin Vallejos, and reinsert, if you're Josh Emmett, themselves into the elite discussions of featherweight. So I want to get your thoughts, your predictions, and your bets for this UFC Vegas 114 headliner down in the comments below. And obviously, with this being an Apex fight card, it's not the deepest that we've ever seen by any means, but there are 14 bouts in total, and there are 2 other top 15 matchups that we got to discuss here. And the next one is in the co-main event, a pivotal clash in the women's strawweight division, a division that over the last 3 events did not have any fights whatsoever. So this is big time important right now. And it will feature the number 5 ranked former title challenger Amanda Lemos and the 8th ranked Gillian Robertson, who has been on a tear since moving down to strawweight. For the 38-year-old Lemos, she has been trading wins and losses dating back to November of 2022, where she would get a victory over Marina Rodriguez. That was what would earn her a shot against Zhang Weili at UFC 292 in August of 2023, where she would lose a dominant decision. From there, she would go on to defeat the now current champion Mackenzie Dern, then lose to Virna Jandiroba, then beat Yasmin Lucindo, then lose to Tatiana Suarez. So if you're following the trend, she should be all but a shoe-in to get a victory this weekend, right? But the 30-year-old Gillian Robertson may have something to say for that, as since moving down to strawweight in April of 2023, she has had 6 fights and won 5 of them, and 3 of the 5 against top 15 opponents. And 3 of those 5 are by way of stoppage as well. The only loss was to Tabitha Ricci, a fellow top 10 ranked strawweight. And the ranked opponents that she has beaten, Michelle Waterson-Gomez, one of the most dominant victories in all of 2024, a decision over Luana Pinheiro, and then a TKO finish over Marina Rodriguez last May. And so if Gillian can win this fight, she immediately inserts herself into the top 5 of the strawweight division, into title contention, and what will be, my opinion, one more win away from earning a title shot in this weight class. Whereas Amanda Lemos is just looking to hold on to her spot and maybe before it's too late, pick up another victory or 2 and get a second crack at strawweight gold before she hangs up the gloves. But things are a little bit cloudy right now, and potentially at the time I'm recording this, we may be getting answers sooner rather than later, as Mackenzie Dern does not have her first title defense booked just yet since winning the vacated belt last October at UFC 321. However, I think it's all but certain that she's going to be welcoming Zhang Weili back down to 115 in their title fight, and we do know that Tatiana Suarez and Lupi Godinez, number 2 and number 6 respectively, are fighting for what is probably a title shot at UFC 327 on April 11th. And then we have this fight here falling shortly behind them. And we've got a fun scrap between the 2 men that are capping out the rankings at flyweight, the 14th ranked Charles Johnson and the 15th ranked Bulldog Bruno Silva. And so we've got 2 ways to look at Charles Johnson and the state of his career entering UFC Vegas 114. On one hand, you can say that he enters having lost 2 of his last 3, including a knockout loss to Alex Perez in January at UFC 324, but if you want to peel back the curtain, on the other hand, you can say that he's won 5 of his last 7 bouts. And his most recent win was a knockout, and it came last August against Lonnie Kavanaugh, who just launched himself into the flyweight rankings and into the flyweight top 10 and near title contention with his short notice victory at UFC Mexico over the former 2-time champion Brandon Moreno. And over the course of those 7 fights, where 5 of them have been victories, 1 of those 5 was against Joshua Van. So just how damn good is Charles Johnson? And his opponent and fellow 35-year-old flyweight Bruno Silva has also won 5 of his last 7 fights, and he will enter also having lost 2 of his last 3. But his most recent fight was in fact a victory, as he would submit Hyung Sung Park last October. And the 2 losses in the last 7 fights, it was to Joshua Van, the now champion, and Manel Kape, a potential title challenger after Tatsuro gets his opportunity. And all 5 of those victories that I've alluded to have come by way of stoppage. This man is a highlight reel in this flyweight division, quite literally a kill or be killed fighter, as all 7 of those fights have not gone the distance. Silva has not seen the judges' scorecard since October of 2020. And so look, I'm not saying that the winner of this is going to enter title contention, and they're not even going to enter the top 10, but they will absolutely remain relevant in the flyweight top 15 and place themselves in an opportunity to get a top 10 opponent in their next bout, depending on how the division plays out over these next few weeks and months. And let's just be honest, this fight is going to deliver. It will not be boring. There will be an emphatic victory. It's just a matter of if that's Charles Johnson or Bruno Silva getting their hand raised. And as for the rest of the card, there's at least a couple couple of bouts and fighters that I want to spotlight here real quick as we finish out this preview. In the light heavyweight division, Jan Cutelaba will be taking on Umar C being one of the biggest and best prospects in the Dahl light heavyweight division right now, as he is 3-1 since debuting in the UFC in May of 2024, and 2 of those 3 victories are by way of stoppage, including his most recent win over Brinson Ribeiro last September, and the only loss was a decision to Alonzo Minifield. Andre Fili and Jose Delgado are going to scrap it out in the featherweight division. Someone's probably getting slept in that one on the feet. A low-key potential banger opportunity here in the welterweight division is Chris Curtis, the action man, will be taking on Miktabek Orolbai, who's been in nothing short of absolute bloody war since entering the UFC the last couple of years. And a name that you must keep your eyes on in the women's bantamweight division, Bia Mesquita is back, looking to hold on to her perfect record, taking on Montserrat Rendon. The former jiu-jitsu world champion Bia Mesquita has finished 5 of her 6 professional bouts, and 4 of the 5 by way of submission, including her UFC debut where she would submit Irene Alexieva last October, and now making a relatively quick turnaround here. And if she gets a victory over Rendon, she should absolutely be getting a top 15 bantamweight next. It's not even up for question. And from the women's bantamweight division to the men's bantamweight division, we have the 9-1 Elijah Smith, who at just 23 years of age has finished 6 of his 9 victories and is already 2-0 in the UFC. And you may remember his absolutely devastating knockout of the year contender that he had last August, where he would slam Toshiomi Kazama and put him out cold for a very, very long, borderline uncomfortable amount of time. Elijah Smith is a dangerous prospect at 135, and he is going to be taking on Soo-Young Yu. So that is it for the UFC Vegas 114 breakdown, and now it's time to turn the discussion over to you. What are your predictions? What are your bets? And everything in between for this Apex Fight Night event. If you enjoyed this preview, please be sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new, as every single week I break down and preview the biggest and best fights and storylines, most importantly to me, heading into each weekend, and I recap the most meaningful results in the aftermath, and I also give my thoughts and opinions on MMA news and fight announcements. You can also join the community on social media at Verbal Spar MMA on X, Instagram, and TikTok, as well as like the Facebook page Verbal Sparring MMA, and you can follow on your favorite audio listening platforms such as Spotify and Apple, where every Monday and Friday podcast episodes release there. Have a great weekend, enjoy the fights, and I will see you all in the next video.